If you're a new roaster or you're planning your first coffee roastery, you may have done a bit of reading around roasting coffee and understood that temperature and time are two important factors within designing roast profiles and have a profound impact on the overall cup profile or flavour of your coffee at the end. This short video is going to explain through a cupping and a profile analysis of 3 coffees that have had different temperatures and different times. 2 of the batches have the same time but differing temperatures, and 1 batch has the same temperature but differing times. And through a cupping, I will discuss the impact of those 2 variables on the roasted batch, so you've got a better idea about how to approach a faster or a slower roast, a lower or a higher temperature. First, I'm going to bring up the 3 roast profiles and we'll have a chat around that data. So here we have the 3 batches of Gombe, a washed coffee from Burundi that I roasted a week ago. So the cupping will be 7 days off roast. You'll note that the heat profile, or the way I have approached heating the coffee up, has a very similar mantra. Yes, the profiles of the heat application are different because I was trying to meet different endpoints, but conceptually they are the same, i.e. each 3 of the batches have had the pyramid heat approach that I'm enjoying on the Loring S15 Falcon behind me. Each of the bean temperature curves follow a very similar path, and as a result of the heat profile, you can see that the rate of rises drop in a very similar way. Of course, they do not match because the endpoints are different, but the concept for each 3 is the same. So here's the nitty-gritty of data. Batch 27700 was roasted in 8 minutes and 31 seconds with an end point in temperature of 210.4 degrees Celsius. The next batch, 27701, was trying to increase the time but keep the temperature as close as I possibly could. So time here, 9 minutes and 2 seconds, that's a 31-second difference in overall temperature versus its reference roast, and an end temperature of 210.9 degrees Celsius. Yes, there is a 0.5 degrees Celsius variance in those parity endpoints, but I couldn't quite get it exactly, but you know, we're pretty close. In the third batch, 27702, I wanted to explore the increase in temperature. So its endpoint was 212.6 degrees Celsius, a near 2 degrees Celsius increase in its previous batch, but the time was kept a constant, so 9 minutes and 3 seconds here versus its reference of 9 minutes and 2 on batch 27701. So that's the data. What do they taste like? Now, before I actually do the tasting, what we're going to do is our preliminary assessment of dry fragrance. So that is when you use your nose to smell the dry grounds of coffee. In this, you might get some leading understandings about what the actual flavour profile is going to be, and it's an important assessment when cupping coffee. For reference, the batches are 27700 through to 27702 in this order, left to right for me, right to left for you. So cup 1. A nice bright characteristic on the nose, and that may be mapped somewhat on this cup here. Well, you can tell that the aroma profile is a little more rounded in this mid cup. That there has a bright effervescence, and this sort of less so. This one here has a much more pronounced sweetness. It's as if there's got some sticky sugar syrup inside of this cup. So what we can assume so far is that on dry fragrance, a fast roast has a brighter nose than a slightly slower roast, and a higher end temperature has a more pronounced sweetness on the dry fragrance. Next, it's apply water, then we'll do aroma. So let's get on with that. I'm seeing a similar representation in aroma that I did in dry fragrance, whereby roast 27700, the fast roast, has a brighter nose, and 27702, the higher end temperature, has a more sweet representation, and the sort of midway batch, that was half and half, somewhere muted and somewhere less fruity. I don't have a preference. I'm looking forward to cupping. There has been a similar transference in qualities of the cup from dry fragrance to aroma and now into the actual end cup profile. The fast batch has a brighter acidity and a much lighter body. The fruit composition of this washed coffee from Burundi is again brighter and more effervescent. The second batch, that was the same end temperature there or thereabouts, but 30 seconds longer in time, has a more muted expression of acidity than the faster batch. The fruits are still there, but because the acidity is less pronounced, there seems to be a tiny bit more balance in the roast that was 30 seconds longer at that same end temperature. And the last roast, that was the same roast time as the middle batch, but a slightly higher end temperature, has a more sweet fruit characteristics. The body is a touch more pronounced and it's a bit more syrupy on my palate as well. For this coffee, I feel that this batch is the most preferable because there seems to be just a bit more balance inside of the cup. It would be a more versatile coffee for those people who are brewing in a multitude of brew apparatus. However, if you wanted to have a very expressive coffee, I would maybe go for this hard and fast, but I would tick the temperature up a tiny little bit. So let's bring in some more of that sweet fruits with the effervescence of a fast roast. Now that wasn't a conclusion, I'll do that next. So time and temperature do have a very profound impact on your overall cup profile, so dry fragrance, aroma, and how the coffee tastes. A faster roast gives you a lighter body, a more effervescent acidity and possibly fruit characteristics than a roast that is a touch slower, that would increase in body terms, increase in texture. A higher end temperature will give you a more sweet and rounded representation of the fruits that are within the coffee, and also if you had caramels or milk chocolates, again those would be more texture led and more sweet. Where your preference lies is exactly that, your preference. Seek the roast profile that has the greatest degree of balance in your mind. You may be a person that particularly enjoys light-bodied, effervescent coffees, and therefore roast a little faster and to a lower end temperature. If, however, you enjoy coffees that are more texture-led, you like a rounded acidity and more body, then perhaps roast the coffee a touch longer to also a higher end temperature. There is no right or wrong when you approach roasting coffees, so long as you circumnavigate roast defects like tipping and scorching and underdevelopment. Should you avoid those, anything and everything is fair game. Time and temperature give you different representations of the coffee that you are roasting. As you gain more experience, what you'll find is that there is a proportionate, best balanced roast profile for processing methods such as washed, pulp natural, etc., and cultivar. And as you move through different cultivars and processing methods, you will build up a library of best practices for each of those coffees. I hope this video has been somewhat helpful. Do let me know in the comments below if you have any comment about what I've just presented to you, and good luck with your roasting.